Welcome to our RIMP Code video series, Explicit Instruction and Comprehension. My name is Michelle Elia, and I will provide further clarification about this instructional practice. Before focusing intervention efforts on comprehension, it is critical to ascertain if students need additional instruction in phonics, fluency, vocabulary, sentence structure, and text structure. Why? Because comprehension is an outcome. Comprehension, according to Anita Archer, Nagy, and Anderson, occurs when the student can read the words accurately and fluently, understands the meaning of the words, has adequate background knowledge, and can focus attention on critical content. Intervention focus should be on a limited number of strategies that are intentional mental actions during reading that improve reading comprehension. They are deliberate efforts by a reader to better understand or remember what is being read and to build knowledge. The building of knowledge is going to be critical. Teach students to question, visualize, monitor, clarify, infer, and summarize. Student knowledge of a subject, background knowledge, and academic vocabulary are key contributors to overall comprehension. This final bullet really does help to highlight some of the limitations of strategy instruction alone. Strategies, absent some level of knowledge, a purpose for engaging in the literary practice, and an identification with the domain or purpose will not take readers very far. Teaching reading strategies is a low-cost way to give developing readers a boost, but it should be a small part of a teacher's job. Acquiring a broad vocabulary and a rich base of background knowledge will yield more substantial and longer-term benefits. This is going to be important to keep in mind when we consider what to teach and how to teach. What to teach. First of all, we want to use complex texts. These grade-level rigorous texts should align with the core instruction in terms of unit and themes covered. It should also be designed to build background knowledge and include academic vocabulary or Tier 2 vocabulary. We're going to teach comprehension strategies. These can include questioning, visualizing, monitoring and clarifying, inferring, and summarizing. And we're going to teach multiple strategies. These can be organized before, during, and after reading strategies. The important thing is to think about the text while reading it and focus our students' attention on the critical content. Here's an example of some before, during, and after reading practices that can be part of our instruction and intervention. How to teach. Again, we'll use multiple texts on a topic. Videos, infographic images, and other texts to build this knowledge base are going to be critical. We want to have text sets that build up or stair-step up to a more complex text. We also want to align the text in the intervention with what texts we're reading in our core instruction as well. Use multiple strategies. We want to continue to teach a combination of strategies. Why? Because we want to give our students multiple tools in their toolbox. The text and the knowledge to be gained from the text, those are the stars of the lesson. Model first, and then practice strategies as tools for unpacking complex text. Read, write, and discuss. Students can complete graphic organizers, such as story grammar, top-down topic webs, and two-column notes. Students should also engage in writing and discussion of what they have read to make connections to other texts in the text set, to summarize, predict, and practice asking questions. We also need to be sure that we model queries or moments where we pause, reflect on what we've read, and ask ourselves questions about the text we've just read. I'm going to model that for you now. So here I have a second grade text. I downloaded it from ReadWorks, and this text is called Fatima Jabrel. You'll notice that my text is pretty marked up. I've got Post-it notes all over the text just to help me with my queries so that I can model them for my students. Okay, so what I've done here is pre-planned where I'm going to pause throughout the text, as my students and I are reading it aloud in order to model queries or places where I'll pause to summarize, ask questions, or just clarify my own understanding of the content. Now, we'll have the students read aloud together as a group. And again, this is a small group, and I will model each of these queries with my students. I'll give you some examples here. So Fatima Jabril is an inspiring environmentalist. My first query was an environmentalist. That's a term we already learned. What do they do again? And so then we can review as a class what an environmentalist does. She was born and raised in Somalia. Somalia is a country on the east coast of Africa. Jabril immigrated to the United States during high school. She studied there and became an American citizen. I have another query. She was born in Somalia but moved to the United States. That must be important information that's going to impact the rest of my text. I think I'm going to remember that for later. In the early 1990s, Jabril went back to Somalia. She saw that many Somali people were cutting down trees. They burned these trees to make charcoal. This reminds me of what we read about Vietnam. We learned about how in Vietnam they were cutting down a lot of the trees, and it impacted the habitat for a lot of animals there. I wonder if something like that's going to happen here in Somalia or happened in Somalia as well. I should probably keep reading. The other query I have here is about burning the trees to make charcoal, because I didn't know the charcoal was made from trees. So I have a query about this. Charcoal is made from trees? I didn't even know that. Okay, so charcoal is a type of fuel. Many people and businesses use it. Somalis sold the charcoal to other parts of the world. Well, if the Somalis are selling the charcoal, then that's going to have an impact on the environment because they're killing a lot of trees. The charcoal business hurt Somalia's environment. Well, there we go. So my prediction turned out to be true. Animals lost their habitats. That reminds me again about what we learned about Vietnam. The land became very dry because there were no trees to hold water in the ground. Somalia had bad droughts. Droughts are periods of time with very little rain. They can lead to a shortage of water. So Somalia's land was already dry from drought, but then they also cut down the trees, and the trees were really helpful. They held the water in the land. So no wonder this was a really important thing to consider when it comes to impact on the environment. I think now I might know why she's an environmentalist. Cutting down trees hurts Somalia's environment. So you kind of get the idea here. I've got lots of Post-it notes, got lots of queries, but as I model this for my students, I'm actually going to help them to think about the text as they read it. And although I'm using a lot of different strategies, I always make the text and the knowledge the star of the show. In addition, after reading the text the first time, before a second read, or maybe after a second read, I can have my students organize their thoughts for both writing and discussion. So some sort of a top-down topic web could be really helpful in this capacity. Here, I might want to use a problem and solution graph, or I could use a top-down topic web such as this one where I indicate the problem, and the problem is the cutting down of trees in Somalia, and then the possible solution, which we didn't get a chance to read about yet, but involves using solar cooktops instead of charcoal. So these organizers can help my students to engage now in writing, but also engage in discussion with their classmates. For more information about this particular intervention, see page 28 in Ohio's plan to raise literacy achievement. Thank you so much for your time.